Well, my favorite student, I have good news and bad news for you for this segment. The good news is we are not going to have a quiz at the end of this segment because we're dealing with a pretty rough topic. So that's the bad news. We're going to be talking about the first crime committed in history. It's the story of the first two kids. They were named Cain and Abel. Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and then Abel. And if you want to read along with us, it's Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, here we go, starting at verse 1. Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help I have produced a man." Later, doesn't say how much later, later she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Now let's lock this in. Cain presented some of his crops to the Lord, okay? Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift. But he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. Now it's opinion time, everybody. Remember we told you when sermons are prepared by teachers, Bible teachers or pastors or priests, you have to do an opinion sometimes on what happened. There are many different opinions on why God rejected Cain's offering and why Abel's was accepted. So here comes the opinions. First of all, the fact that Cain bought some crops and Abel bought a firstborn lamb is a factor, because I just want to skip ahead in the Bible. A little bit later in the Bible, God tells his people how to worship him, and the way to worship God is by bringing the firstborn unblemished lamb, or sometimes a goat or a sheep, to God, and bring a blood offering that way. And as we get into the gospel, you'll be taught that the truth that Jesus was the Lamb of God. He was the firstborn, only Son of God. So, symbolically speaking, it was a much better gift to present a firstborn lamb from the flock of Abel than to present something else that Cain did. Secondly, there's a question of if Cain was not as faithful or as honest or sincere as he should have been. Let's take a look at Hebrews. This is much later in the Bible, chapter 11, verse 4. It says, "By faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings." So here in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews says that Abel was more faithful and he was more righteous in bringing his offer. So the question comes, maybe one brother was more sincere than the other brother. So on the left we have Cain and his measly offering, and on the right we have the lamb brought to God by Abel. Here is Genesis chapter 4, verse 6. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at your door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." Here's yet another opinion. God himself is telling Cain that he was rejected because there's so much sin around him. And the way he puts it, I like this, sin is crouching at your door. So he's encouraging Cain to overcome the sin. But what happens next? One day Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out into the fields." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. That is the first crime committed in history. Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother? Where is Abel?" And here's a pretty famous verse from the Bible. Cain's answer, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But God knew what was going on. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. So just as his mother and father Adam and Eve were driven from the Garden of Eden for committing the original sin, here Cain is rejected by God and actually expelled from the area, and he's going to have a very hard life in the future. So before we wrap this story up, I have a couple of questions for you. Why did the killing occur? Well, we gave you several different opinions, but maybe you have a different opinion. The other question that we get a lot in Bible class is, how do they have so many kids? How was the earth populated just from two people, Adam and Eve? And the simple answer is this: Adam and Eve had many, many sons and daughters, and they married each other. Remember, things were different back then. Adam lived to be 930 years old. We were designed to just be a race, a people of human beings that just multiplied. Genesis chapter 4:25 does mention another child, however. It says, Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son named Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. And I want to mention this. Not only is this the next child that is mentioned in the Bible among many, many, many children, but it's pretty relevant because Seth was a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. I just wanted to throw that in there before we wrap up this segment. So remember, no quiz today because we discussed the first crime in the Bible, the murder of Abel by his older brother Cain. Shame on him. We hope you join us for our next segment.